UFC Vegas 86. These are the full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event, Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer. Looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure to share the video as well. And also note, I will be live for the entire UFC Vegas 86 fight card Saturday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. Don't miss the fight, companion. And let's get into the first fight on the card. It's Daniel Marcos versus Aoriqileng. I'm going to be picking Daniel Marcos to win here. Technical skill set on the feet is superior to Qileng. I will say, though, I definitely think Qileng is pretty powerful and explosive. He comes in with good pressure moving forward. Knockout power in his hands, even though necessarily the knockouts haven't been coming, I still think he can definitely sting. He can hurt Marcos, right? But Marcos is smart. Marcos is going to be moving. Marcos is going to evade the power onslaught that Aoriqileng is going to bring to him. Marcos is technically superior with the lower half, especially kicks to the legs, teeps to the body, maybe even front kicks up high. I think Daniel Marcos is going to keep good lateral movement and cleanly outstrike Aoriqileng. Obviously, last time for Marcos, kind of a controversial-esque split decision with Davey Grant. Still, Grant's a pretty quality tier fighter, and Marcos early in his UFC run went out there and got a W over him, and Davey Grant knocked out Jonathan Martinez, and look how good he's doing right now in the UFC. So, part of the game. He beat Marlon Vieira at one point. I think Marcos is pretty good. I think he can beat Aoriqileng. Last time out, Aori got a W over Johnny Munoz, but Munoz more bottom tier guy at 135. Lost to Aiemann Zahabi. And I know what you're thinking. It's like, okay, if Aiemann Zahabi could knock out Aoriqileng, wouldn't Marcos do the same? I don't feel like Marcos has crazy punching power. And not that Aiemann Zahabi does either, per se. But it was just a perfect shot. Like, just because Aori was chinned that one time, don't question his durability. He's been knocked out once as a pro, and the dude's very experienced. So I'm going Marcos, judges scorecards in a hard fight, but a clean win for Marcos. Now, as far as the odds, Marcos minus 230, the favorite. Aoriqileng, the plus 195 underdog. Yeah, I got to go with Daniel Marcos to win. But Aoriqileng's definitely starting to find some footing in the UFC, and I do think he's a tough out for Marcos, and maybe we'll push him more than people are anticipating. But I like Daniel Marcos to win. I'd assume the vast majority would agree with that pick. Let's keep running up. Next fight on the card, we got Hyder Amil versus Fernie Garcia. I will tell you, I am not super impressed with Hyder Amil, and it's not just because him and Emre Solmez was like a very competitive back and forth wrestling heavy fight. You dig into other fights for Hyder, and he's having moments elapse. Opponents are getting the better of him in certain positions, but somehow, some way, the dude always finds a way to win at 8-0. I'm picking Hyder Amil to win here against Fernie Garcia. I am going to call him on the cards, possibly, probably. Amil does have a bit of sneaky punching power, but it's the fact that Fernie, pretty durable guy, quality stand-up game, has some hands on him, Mexican fighter, durable on that chin, and well-rounded. He can wrestle pretty good too, but Fernie coming up. He took this fight on short notice against Amil, jumped in from Melsik Bagdasaryan, and Bagdasaryan was a short notice replacement. I feel like Amil pulls this one off, size advantage being a factor. Like, I kind of feel like skill set wise, there's not a crazy difference in these two, but Amil's a little bit larger. He's going to be a bit stronger, and I definitely do think he punches harder. So I'm going Hyder Amil to win this thing. I think he can pull it off. I think probably on the cards, though, I'm going to stick with my decision call, even though I'd love to see a violent second fight. Fernie looks pretty durable, man. He looks like he takes some good licks. You dig back into other fights like, yeah, lost to Journey Newsome, which that looks bad. And that's another reason you got to, lean towards Amil, is even though Fernie has okay performances, he's losing to Prospect on the come-up, Brady Heastan, Rinya Nakamura. Hyder Amil's just 33, kind of like an old prospect. Like, most people will tell me in the comments, you can't call him a prospect because he's 33, but where he's at in his career is prospect-like. I'm going to pick him to beat Fernie Garcia, but won't tell you go crazy on it. He's, I know he's a favorite. Yeah, we got him at. No line that I'm seeing pop up. No, minus 185 Amil. Garcia plus 160. He's unproven, but like Fernie's never been able to get a UFC win. Probably going over 2.5. Expect a lot of scrambles in the wrestling. Expect a high-paced fight by both guys. But I do think Amil will pressure Garcia backwards a bit and like dictate where the fight's taking place for the most part. And that's why I feel like Hyder Amil is going to be the pick to ride with here. We're going Amil. I'm going to call a decision in this fight. But young guy on the come-up, coming off a Contender Series. We saw a couple Contender Series guys go 1-1 last week in their, real UFC debuts. Hyder Amil 8-0 at 33. Like, there's a couple red flags. But then he's fighting a 35er who took it on real short notice. So he should pull it off. Next fight on the card. Zach Pauga versus Bogdan Guskov. Pick here is going to be Zach Pauga. I just don't think Bogdan Guskov is that good. He throws really hard punches. And yeah, he's chinning guys on a lower level scene. You can look, knockout there, knockout, knockout. But in the UFC, he debuted against Volkan, and sure, he landed a really nice right hand at one point, but he still got bullied in that fight and then ended up getting strangled. He also got knocked out outside of the UFC before. I know Zach Pauga is kind of one of those hit-or-miss guys. I've picked against him in the past. I've rode with him in the past. He did look pretty decent on The Ultimate Fighter at heavyweight before getting chinned by Mo Usman. His last fight, he lost to Modestas Bukauskas, but he landed some big hooks on Bukauskas. He had a couple moments in the fight. He definitely can crack a bit. And Bukauskas is a capable striker. Guskov's a coin flip. He's a wild card because he was rushed to fight somebody to the level of Volkan Oezdemir. So we don't necessarily know where he's at, like unless you're looking at outside of UFC tape, but against a UFC caliber guy, I just have a feeling inside that Pauga will end up dropping him. So we're going with Zach Pauga KO. Pauga. Minus 140 for Zach Pauga. Guskov plus 120. Under 1.5, minus 110. I don't even think under 1.5 is worth attacking because, you look, light heavyweight, been decisions for Pauga. I know he didn't even knock out Jordan Wright, and now I'm picking him to knock out Bogdan Guskov. I just see the hook landing. I think Guskov will come in throwing heavies, and I don't know. Jordan Wright, now that loss is, or that win rather, is searing in my mind. Like Pauga might end up having to take him long in a clinch fest at the Apex. But we do know Pauga's also capable of controlling guys in the clinch. He comes from a football background, so he's pretty athletic and strong. I'm going to ride with him. Also, Team Elevation, training with Curtis Blades. We'll go Pauga for the W. I'll call knockout, but honestly, worrisome call on knockout. Could definitely go longer. Next fight on the card, it's Jeremiah Wells versus Max Griffin. I'm going to pick Max Griffin to pull off an upset in this fight. I think he's pretty damn capable on the feet to outstrike Wells. Now, I know Wells is an absolute powerhouse, and if he touches anybody on the chin, he could flatline him. But I can't get him being dropped by Semmelsberger and rocked and outstruck in that fight out of my mind here, man. I know Jeremiah Wells is also a capable grappler, legit jiu-jitsu skills, black belt on the floor, and really strong in the grappling department. But Max Griffin's pretty scrambly. He's a hard guy to take down. He's got real good lateral movement. He finds shots well. He's been in the UFC forever now. Kind of the forgotten guy that beat up Mike Perry some years ago. I'm going to go Max Griffin to take it on the cards, man. He gave Michael Morales a really tough fight last time, too. And Morales was coming in there, as a guy expected to shine and win, and which he did win, but not without some resistance. Max Griffin's pretty decent, man. I'm going to go with Max Griffin by a decision. I've always felt like he has a weird striking style, though. Like his footwork specifically. It's kind of like somewhat pigeon-toed stance, but it works really well for him, and he kind of spurts in and out of range nicely. So I like Max Griffin to pull this one off. I'm going to take him on the cards. I'm going to say it's a hard fight between him and Wells, but he's able to avoid some bad grappling spots, strike well on the feet, land some clean ones, and pull it off on the scorecards. Max Griffin's a bit of a dog here. He is plus 150, Wells minus 175. But you're betting on a 38-year-old dog against Jeremiah Wells, who I know is 37, but fresher to the UFC. And Wells, to be fair, is scary, man. He hits really hard. So if you're throwing down on Max Griffin, I just recommend intelligence on it. I'm picking him, but I don't really know if I love the betting side of it. Even though it's plus money, I'm not picking it because of the odds. I just think Griffin could outpoint him in a pretty competitive fight. But I could also see Jeremiah Wells landing a hammer. Like, he's still got some heavy heat. But yeah, I think Max Griffin's technically superior. I'm going to say he evades the grappling spots. He outstrikes Jeremiah Wells and looks evidently quicker on the feet and wins this on the judges' scorecards. Let's keep running up. Next fight on the card, we got Devin Clark versus Marcin Prachnio. I'm going to pick Devin Clark to finish Prachnio. I think he can knock him out. Devin Clark's got a very pressure, smothering, brawler wrestling style. And I think he has a bit of power in his hands. Doesn't always get those finishes, but definitely has some heavy shots. He'll just kind of like overly close the gap and like smother his chance of getting a finish at times because, you know, he's not a boxer from distance. He's not a snappy kick boxer or somebody with a stiff jab. He's coming at you like a fucking buck. Head down, forward pressure, looking to take you to the floor or beat you up against the cage. That's where he shines. On the opposite side, Prachnio's more of like your traditionalist martial arts kickboxer. Decently slick, brings up that Thai-style high guard at times. I don't know, he's a little awkward too, though. He's throwing like looping shots, but sometimes I think he overthrows it. He's out of position. He doesn't really set his feet that well either, and I think that Devin Clark can capitalize on some of those moments and end up getting on top. But I am going to say Clark bullies him into a finish. We're going with Devin Clark knockout in this fight. As far as the odds, Devin Clark, minus 205, Prachnio plus 175. I like the chances for Devin Clark here at minus 205. He should definitely be able to land takedowns. He could outmuscle a Prachnio. I think he can hurt him in close range with power strikes, and I do think he can finish him off with some dirty boxing and ground and pound. So we're going Devin Clark for the win. Next fight on the card, ladies going after it. Loma Lookboonmee versus Bruna Brasil. Love Loma Lookboonmee here. Bruna Brasil's decent. She was pretty, I don't know, too competitive. I don't want to say she was close with Shauna Bannon, but it was fairly competitive. There was moments. Loma Lookboonmee has a Muay Thai background. She is from Thailand. Very strong base, and the clinch work is evident of that Thai background because she has really good trips and she's super physically strong and close. I really think she can body Bruna Brasil for the most part, dominate this fight in close on the ground, and even from the distance, I don't think Bruna Brasil is as powerful as maybe initially advertised. She does have some decent kicks, but Loma Lookboonmee is going to read a lot of the attacks coming from Bruna, and I do think she outworks her and pulls this one off. Should be a pretty clean, unanimous decision for Lookboonmee, who came to the UFC early on in her career. Like, she's built up, what was she, 3-1 coming to the UFC, now 8-3? Or even 3-0 coming in, and now 8-3 still. Like, she grew up in the UFC, and she's not even 30 yet. She's 28. Common opponent is Denise Gomes between these two, and Lookboonmee was dominant against Gomes. Obviously, Gomes finished off Bruna Brasil. It's not that MMA math necessarily matters, but you see the level of Lookboonmee and how she looked there versus Bruna Brasil getting outworked and outstruck. I think Lookboonmee is good to win here. Pretty confident call in this ladies fight. Minus 255 Lookboonmee. Bruna Brasil plus 215. Yeah, I like Lookboonmee. I think decision. She's coming off a win over Elise Reed last time. Then obviously Brazil beat Shauna Bannon, like I said. But I wasn't overly impressed. On Contender, she beat Marnik Mann, who got pretty lopsided loss in her UFC debut against Josephine Knudsen. So not crazy about it. I think that Loma Lookboonmee should win this thing. She's fought good opposition, like a loss to Lupi Godinez. She got a loss to Angela Hill. But when she fights lower tier ladies, her prospects, she does pretty damn good. Lookboonmee for the W. Next fight on the card, we got Bolaji Oki versus Damir Hadžović. I'm picking Bolaji Oki to starch Damir Hadžović in impressive fashion. Impressive. Very impressive. He's an impressive guy, I'll tell you something. Bolaji Oki rips his shots nicely and pretty smoothly. The way he's striking, his boxing skill set, pretty fine-tuned. I actually really enjoyed watching him really whoop Dylan Salvador looking back on it. And I don't know, the fact that he can rip apart Salvador, who is highly rated in the striking department. I think Hadžović's kind of stiff in the stand-up, and his go-to in this fight is going to be looking to grapple. But I think Oki's going to have the hips to stop the grappling attack. I think Oki's going to be way faster and cleaner on the feet. 9-year age discrepancy. We have a prospect on the come-up versus Hadžović, who's holding on as a veteran, but I don't think he will hold on much longer. And he's coming off of a loss last time. Jacasey just grappled him. Oh, just lay, pray, control. That was horrible, that fight. And then Yancy Medeiros, getting a win over Yancy is not awful, but let's be real. Yancy's over in, PFL tour now. Obviously, Moicano 3 years ago. He's been inconsistent, man. He's fighting like once a year. Like once a year, not even, less than once a year over the past 4 years. Whereas I got Oki, nice prospect on the come up with explosion, power, slick stand-up, hands that don't lie, nasty straights, body rips too. He ripped Salvador up with body shots. I think he's going to expose Hadžović's stiff striking. So give me Bolaji Oki for the win by knockout. Oki's -275, Hadžović +235. These odds make sense to me. Oki should style on him, and I think we got a fun prospect on the come up from Belgium. Next fight on the card, we got Trevin Giles versus Carlos Prates. I'm going to pick Carlos Prates to win by knockout. I think he should style on Trevin Giles striking. And he should also be able, for the most part, to stop the takedowns. I could see Giles landing a couple takedowns, but I think Prates works back up to his feet because Giles has athleticism and explosiveness on a takedown, but he doesn't have crazy good top control, crazy good transitional defense and positional control. I don't really see him getting to the back and holding Prates. I think Prates has legit jiu-jitsu. Maybe gets taken down once or twice, gets back up, and just destroys Trevin Giles striking. Because Prates has freaky wingspan, 78-inch reach. That is really, really good for 170. That's top caliber at 170. He knows how to use striking from distance, good straight shots, Muay Thai background, nasty and close with knees, elbows. I think Trevin Giles is in big trouble. I think he is a sacrificial lamb heading into this fight. And I think Prates gets a scintillating win. Giles has kind of used this prospect's, feast. I know he beat Dolidze. Granted, Dolidze just got stifled this past Saturday. Lost badly to Duplessis some time ago. Lost badly last time out against Michael Morales here. Gabriel Bonfim here. Michael Morales did knock him out too. Then he got 2 little wins. Koshke, Parsons, competitive with Parsons. And he got rocked against Parsons, though. He cuts a lot of weight to 70 also because he's a former 85er. And I think that chin will not hold up to somebody of the striking level of Prates. So we're going Prates knockout. And I like the prospect a lot. Prates -200. Giles +170, under 1.5, -115. I was hoping to be under 2.5. We'll see what that sits at later on in the week. Prates for the win, though. -200 favorite with a striking game like this, competent ground skills. I think Trevin Giles is a sitting duck for big strikes. We're going knockout Prates. Let's keep running up. Main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Rodolfo Vieira versus Armen Petrosyan. This fight was originally scheduled for December. Now we get it again after it got canceled, I believe, on fight day. Yeah, the pick is Armen Petrosyan again. I mean, he's got dangerous striking. His kickboxing is really damn good. Striking from distance and ability to manage distance on point. He's going to beat up Rodolfo Vieira. Vieira has world championship jiu-jitsu. He's nasty on the map, but nonetheless doesn't have the great wrestling base to back it. I would say he has okay striking at best. I don't get that Cody Brundage dropping him with an overhand out of my head very often. I think Vieira is going to get knocked out in this fight. He failed a ton of takedown attempts against Chris Curtis, and I think Petrosyan has pretty capable takedown defense as well, and I think Petrosyan's striking game is going to shine through. It's Petrosyan, vicious knockout. Rodolfo Vieira is going to bed this weekend. Now, as far as the odds for this fight here, Armen Petrosyan's an underdog, +118 to -138 Vieira. Wow, here we're sitting at even. That's crazy. Petrosyan a dog against Vieira? Come on, man. I think Petrosyan will be fine. Like, okay, you say, oh, but he lost to Barrio, the grappler. Okay, Barrio's way more athletic, way more capable in MMA than Rodolfo Vieira. 100% I see Petrosyan chinning him. So we're going Armen Petrosyan, underdog call in this fight. And I love the chances of him winning. He beat Leroy Duncan up, beat AJ Dobson. Granted, he is comfortable winning decisions. Like, so I know people be like, oh, bro, you're going knockout. But, I mean, 3 wins in the UFC, all decisions. Fair point. So decisions possible. But I could see him hurting Vieira and chinning him. So I'm going Armen Petrosyan by KO. It's still a cage fight, and a knockout's still possible, even though he hasn't gotten one yet. So yeah, we're going Petrosyan. We're gonna go knockout. I think he sleeps Rodolfo Vieira. First time of him getting knocked out. Next fight, Michael Johnson versus Darrius Flowers. Holy. I am picking Darrius Flowers to win this fight. Michael Johnson's chin is a massive question mark at this point. He got brutally knocked out by Diego Ferreira last time out. Jamie Mullarkey, he won that fight competitive, or rather he lost it on the scorecards, but he looked like he won that fight against Jamie Mullarkey, but he lost a split decision. Michael Johnson's slick and fast from the outside, but Darrius Flowers is not to be underestimated in the striking department. He's coming down from 170. The dude fought as a cruiserweight in boxing, as a middleweight in MMA. Recently, 170. He's now cutting it up to 55. Darrius Flowers has heavy hands. He has a pro boxing background. I'll tell you his record, and honestly, for a lot of you, you're going to say, bro, I'm picking against him just because of that. He was 1 win, 10 losses with 7 knockout losses in pro boxing. A lot of MMA strikers that hit with a lot of power, sometimes don't do well in boxing. It's a different sport, right? And it's straight hands. With the smaller gloves, Flowers shines. And Michael Johnson's there to be hit. Flowers can unload some big combinations. If he can take a big straight shot from Michael Johnson and continue to walk forward on him, that's going to be a big tell. Then I really think Darrius Flowers is on his way to winning. I checked his IG to see, is he looking more trim, cutting to 55? The dude looks shredded. So I think he's coming in on point. And he's 29, too, so he's right in his prime, whereas Michael Johnson's 37, 21 and 19. Like, I know, he's got great wins. Michael Johnson's got amazing wins. Dustin Poirier win. Edson Barboza win. Tony Ferguson win. But then on the flip side, he's lost to guys like Darren Elkins, Jamie Mullarkey, Diego Ferreira. Granted, he's also fought fighters like Khabib. I got to go Darrius Flowers. I'm going knockout Darrius Flowers. I don't believe in Michael Johnson's chin anymore. I tried to believe in it last time, and it cost it. It cost me. He got flattened with an overhand. And I think Flowers has got heavies, man. Like, you look, he's knocking everybody out. I know this is a slam, but KO here. Decision way back, but I guess not way back, a year and 9 months ago. But he shows big punching power, especially in the closer range. If he can get inside on Michael Johnson and start mixing up shots, he's going to rip him apart. I'm going Flowers KO. Let's see. Flowers is a plus 128 dog. Michael Johnson, the minus 148 favorite here. I think Flowers ends him on the under 1.5 again. Forget about the under 1.5. Plus 128, Darrius Flowers, and I'm calling a knockout for him. Next fight on the card, we got Brad Tavares versus Gregory Rodriguez. I'm going to pick Gregory Rodriguez to win this fight inside of the distance. I think he's live to get a knockout, but you got to remember he has really quality jiu-jitsu that, he decided to finally showcase in his last fight against Dennis Tululin. Brad Tavares is a guy that has done well and gone long against quality fighters like Adesanya. Was doing fairly well with Yoel Romero. Just beat Chris Weidman. But he's been chinned by like Edmund Shabazian, Bruno Silva, Rob Whittaker. Guys with the explosive power tend to give Brad Tavares difficulty, specifically explosive power in their hands. Gregory Rodriguez on the flip side has been knocked out a couple times too. I mean, you look, Bruno Ferreira knocked him out recently. And obviously the win against Tululin, a close split decision with Petrosyan, who's also on this card, and a really skilled kickboxer. And then Jordan Williams knocked him out on Contender. So, I get concerns with Rodriguez's chin, but what I will say is, who's Brad Tavares knocking out recently? Okay, he knocked out Phil Baroni over a decade ago. He's got 5 KOs out of his 20 wins, I believe. Knocked out, was it Jocko that he knocked out some years ago? Now I got to double check. His last knockout win, 2018? No. Yeah, 2018. He knocked out Jocko in the 3rd round. I was right. I'm going to go Gregory Rodriguez. I also think Rodriguez could surprise him with the jiu-jitsu. Rodriguez is definitely more primed. So my mindset here is inside of the distance as opposed to just banking on a knockout, because Rodriguez could be live for a submission, especially if he rocks Brad Tavares. I'm going with RoboCop. I think he's going to knock out Tavares officially, though. I'll call knockout as the official pick. RoboCop's minus 230. Tavares plus 195. I'm happy we got this fight rebooked. Even though it was supposed to happen before a couple of them took L's, doesn't matter to me. Still a sick fight. Still excited as hell to see who gets their hand raised at the end of this thing. And I'm picking Gregory RoboCop Rodriguez to win it. We're going with RoboCop. Fan favorite. Next fight, featured bout. Ihor Potieria versus Robert Bryczek. My pick here is Robert Bryczek. I think that he's going to end up winning this fight. Kind of feeling that knockout, to be honest. The thing about Bryczek is he works good jabs. He has like a schooled stand-up style, nice straight down the line. Also explosive power, though. I mean, he's chinning dudes over an octagon. Knockout there, knockout there. Like, look, the knockout streak is sick. Like, you got 5 knockouts in a row, you're catching my attention. Especially against decent guys. Like, Octagon's not horrible. Lee Chadwick he beat a couple fights ago, who's okay from England. Potieria on the opposite end went to war with Bellato, lost. Also note, this is a fight at 185. So Poteria's trimming that weight down. He has fought at 85 before. It was prior to his Contender Series fight. 2 fights prior, I believe. I think Bryczek is going to rip him up. I really do. I think the jab's going to be on target. I think he's technically schooled, and he's going to knock out Ihor Potieria in this fight. I like the chances of this KO. Potieria is slick, though. He's a southpaw with that, like, hands-low style. He's got good overhands, but he might gas out. Fatigues a little bit. Whereas I think his opponent is pretty calculated, on target. Bryczek, knockout win. Watch out for his body rips, too. And I think the hands will fly tonight. And he'll wear down Potieria. And I'm kind of feeling like a later stoppage. Do we have odds for this fight? Yes, we do. Minus 220 for Bryczek. Potieria plus 185. What's weird is Bryczek was going to be a plus 130 dog against Albert Duraev. I think he could have been an interesting underdog there against Duraev, who's very hittable in the striking department. But right now, we got Bryczek. He's a favorite in this fight over Potieria, who's dropping down for his first 185 fight inside of the UFC. I'm excited to see how he looks on the scales, especially on short notice. But Bryczek knockout, I'm feeling good about it. That Bellato fight with Potieria kept his job because it was a good scrap. But I think he's taking an L here. Co-main event, Dan Ige versus Andre Fili. Fili jumping in here on short notice. So mad respect to him taking this fight. 50K Ige on the opposite front is going to be the pick. I have to ride with him. He's got the better boxing, in my opinion, and he has the more legitimate power. I know Touchy Philly's coming off of a sick knockout against Lucas Almeida that might get you a little bit excited. Oh, shit. Maybe he's going to chin Ige. But Ige's not an easy guy to put out. Takes a good shot. Definitely can deliver a good shot. Schooled with his striking fundamentals. Now, granted, Fili's quick with his stand-up. He's got good kickboxing and length from the outside. Team alpha male guy. You know he can wrestle. But I think Ige's going to outpoint him in a competitive striking fight. But the bigger shots will be done by Ige. Like, if I see a fighter getting rocked in this fight, in my mind, I think Fili's going to be the one getting rocked. So I'm going to pick Dan Ige to win this thing. And I'm going to say he gets it done. Hard fought. Decision win, but the more schooled boxing of Ige will win. The thing that I like is both these guys are also comfortable out of both stances, so it should be a pretty fun striking match. Minus 190 Ige, plus 165 for Fili. Got a good feeling that we got a calculated fight that goes longer. It's minus 185 for the over 2.5. Dan Ige is my pick, though. I'm riding with his side. I'm thinking that even though Fili got a sick knockout of Almeida, we can't forget about the Nathaniel Wood loss. You can't write that out of your mind. Lerone Murphy was the original opponent that was supposed to be fighting against Dan Ige, who's an exciting prospect. So respect to Fili jumping in. Wasn't like super short notice, but still short notice. And he gets a big opportunity against a ranked guy. But I think Ige is going to send them back to the unranked. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Jack Hermansson versus Joe Pyfer. I'm picking Joe Pyfer. Hardest punch in the world, harder than Francis Ngannou's. Now, I don't believe that in practice that is true, but I'm one of those punch machines. I do believe it. Joe Pyfer has power in his hands. He's a very skilled striker, but he follows that up with really nasty ground skills, whereas Jack Hermansson, for me, he's incredibly decent. Like, that is his game. He's good enough everywhere. He's got solid enough kickboxing without a ton of finishing ability. He's got nice jiu-jitsu and control, but not the most exciting grappling and the most physically strong guy or the best wrestler on the roster. Yeah, I got a sick, submission, leg lock of Kelvin Gastelum. I respect that sub. But for me, where I lost faith in Hermansson was at this Vettori fight. Like, as far as him ever becoming a contender again. At one point, I thought he was on his way. Then, win over Shahbazyan. You know what? That was a good W because Shahbazyan's a quality kickboxer. Sean Strickland lost. That was no split decision. Chris Curtis win. Cleanly outstruck Chris. It was technical. It was impressive. Like, Hermansson is definitely top 15. Dolidze loss. Dolidze's a wild card fighter. Does shit in the stand-up, looks horrible, then gets you in a bad position on the ground. Extremely weird ground and pound with the leg locked into like a leg triangle into ground and pound for Dolidze there. Joe Pyfer on the opposite side. Yes, he hasn't fought the highest opposition in the UFC, but I think he's well on his way to becoming something special. And the UFC is definitely behind him too. Abdul Razak Al Hassan, arm triangle, knocked out Mearshart and then beat him in grappling following it. And Madovsky, who at that point is just kind of like, throwing a softball pitch. And then before that, Ozzy Diaz on Contender. He lost to Dustin Stutzfust, actually, on the first time in his Contender Series run. He broke his arm in that fight, came back, looked like an absolute killer. I think Joe Pyfer is on his way to finishing Jack Hermansson. I'm going to call knockout as the official call. Hermansson's been KO'd a couple times. Cannonier knocked him out. Thiago Silva knocked him out. There's been moments where he's been chinned, and I feel like Pyfer has the grappling skill set where you could outwork and outposition Hermansson, but I just don't know about saying that he's going to strangle up Hermansson or like lock him in an armbar or a kimura or something. So I'm going to ride with Joe Pyfer to knock Jack Hermansson out. Second or third round KO, and I think that he's a very exciting prospect at 85 right now. Minus 225 for Joe Pyfer, plus 190 for Jack Hermansson. You have to recognize what the UFC is doing here. They're putting a Joe Pyfer, who's only had 3 fights in the UFC, against a legit ranked contender in a main event, hoping that he shines as I'm expecting him to, and then they're going to use that to build him as a dynamite prospect on the come-up in the middleweight division. He can become a legit contender in just a few fights because he's kind of now gotten his opportunity for a fast track. I'm going to say he capitalizes. Joe Pyfer from homeless to hero at this point. So mad respect to him, and I think he's taken out Jack Hermansson by KO. Pyfer in the main event, taking out Jack Hermansson. I just see him sniping him up on the feet. He's going to be quicker. Hermansson, I don't want to say he's stiff in the stand-up, but he isn't incredibly slick in the stand-up, and he's going to clearly be slower with the striking here than Joe Pyfer. Power advantage, obviously, Pyfer. And then, like I said, on the ground, I don't think Hermansson's going to be able to out-wrestle Pyfer. I can see Pyfer out-wrestling Hermansson. Maybe Hermansson's got better leg lock game, but I don't see that being a big factor in this fight. And that's strongly a maybe. We wouldn't even know for sure if these two faced off in grappling, by how Pyfer's doing in grappling, taking out Mearshart, bullying people. I think he'd probably beat Jack Hermansson too. So Joe Pyfer to win the main event, and I think we got a pretty sick contender on the come up at 85 that I'm excited for. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure to share the video as well. And for those people asking, oh, why didn't you talk about last card at the beginning of this video? Well, I do a recap show every single week following UFC cards. So if you guys haven't seen it, make sure to check that out. Daily live streams too. So keep your eyes locked in here at the MMA Experts channel because I got content every damn day. You don't want to miss it. Much love, everybody. W's in the chat if you got nothing to say, but definitely let me know some of your favorite picks in the comments down below. Let me know if you agree with me on some of these calls. Maybe you got some savage dogs that I didn't see. I'm curious what my people are thinking. Big W's to everybody. Much love to my people, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.